Welcome everyone. My name is Amani Hassan, and I am the program director at the Arab British Center. I am joined this evening also by my wonderful team of colleagues, small but mighty team. I am joined by Becky Harrison, who's our communications and events officer.
Hi.
Hey, I'm also joined by Barty, who's our office manager, and the latest addition to our team is Reem, who joins us for a year. She's covering for Nadia, who's our executive director, and she's currently on maternity leave. So Reem joined us at an extremely busy time, and we're very grateful for her being here this evening with us. So thank you all for joining us for our first live event on human journeys, which is part of the SAFAR Film Festival. For those of you that don't know, SAFAR showcases and celebrates the diversity of the broad range of talent, both emerging and established from across the Arab world and the diaspora. This year marks our 5th edition, and whilst COVID-19 has meant that hosting the festival in person was impossible, we have, through the support of the BFI COVID-19 Relief Fund and the League of Arab Ambassadors, taken this festival online. We've also managed to build a brand new website, and we made the program entirely free so that everyone can join us on a journey into the best of Arab cinema. If you enjoyed tonight's event, all we ask is you consider paying it forward and make a donation of at least £10, effectively the cost of a cinema ticket, by following the link that we'll be posting in the chat box shortly. Your support at any level will help make our ambitions for SAFAR 2021 a reality. A donation of £10, for example, could pay for a young person to attend a screening at next year's festival, and a donation of £25 could pay for an emerging filmmaker to attend a workshop led by an industry leader and supporting the development of the next generation of talent. If you have already donated, thank you so much for helping us to champion Arab cinema and support a rich Arab cultural ecology. And if you'd like to find out more about the wider work of the Arab British Center, or if you're interested in continuing your support through making a monthly donation or supporting in any other way, please drop me an email. We will share my contact details again in the chat box, and I'd love to hear from you. Also, we will be making an announcement about our plans for the SAFAR 21 edition during our closing event on Sunday. So make sure you sign up for this and all our other events, of course, on our website. I'm sure you've already all seen it, safarfilmfestival.co.uk. Very proud of this brand new home for the festival. So please do check it out if you haven't had the chance to yet. Tonight, we are joined by Rabia Al-Khouri, who is this year's SAFAR Film Festival curator, and Tamer El Said, whose film In the Last Days of the City is available to watch for free on the SAFAR website until Sunday. I'm just going to give you a very quick introduction on Rabia, and then we'll get going with with tonight's conversation. So Rabia is the managing director at the Metropolis Association, which manages Metropolis Art Cinema, the only art house cinema in Lebanon. Since 2006, he has also worked as general coordinator for the Beirut Cinema Days, the Arab Film Festival at Beirut, DC, which is a cultural association promoting Arab cinema in Lebanon. He has organized over 20 Arab Film Weeks in the Arab world and in Europe. And now he joins the SAFAR team as the festival's 4th curator. And it's been such a pleasure working with him these past few months, especially given the challenges that we have faced. So I'm going to stop talking now, and I am going to give the floor to Rabia.
Thank you so much, Amani, and thanks so much for everyone who's joining. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this very first talk with Egyptian filmmaker Tamer El Said. A couple of words about our program this edition. Of course, we had to change all of our plans so that we could accommodate for an online edition, which was a big challenge, but through the support of the Arab British Center, hopefully we made a program that all of you might enjoy, might find attractive, where you might see films that you potentially might have not seen before, but also hear discussions on films that might sound appealing to you, might be interesting to you, might open doors for you. This program this year is on journeys. I went with the concept of SAFAR. Journeys are at the moment, not to say impossible, but highly unlikely to happen for many of you at least. So we decided to take you on journeys in the Arab world and beyond through 5 screenings composed of 4 feature films and 1 shorts program, 5 talks which we're kicking off tonight, and over 5 evenings from today until Sunday night. We're very delighted to welcome for this opening talk filmmaker Tamer El Said, whose film In the Last Days of the City many of you have watched, and if not, I think you have a chance now to see it during this program. I would very much like to thank Tamer, who has a very busy schedule, who was in Cairo and who came back from Cairo and gave us a bit of his time. For those of you who don't know Tamer, Tamer is a filmmaker from Egypt. He has studied cinema in the High Cinema Institute of Cairo, and he also studied journalism in Cairo. He made several documentaries, short films, and he got his fair share of awards with those. But many people know him because of his work to support the industry in Egypt. He worked with so many emerging filmmakers in Egypt. He supported so many talents. He founded a production company called Zero Production, and he also founded Cimatech, which is an alternative film center in Egypt, which caters for so many cinema aspects, if you want to call them, in Cairo. But it's his film, In the Last Days of the City, his feature debut, which premiered at the 2016 Berlinale and for which he won the Caligari Film Prize in Berlin, that he's known. His film has toured extensively. He has won so many awards, but also there was a huge controversy on his film in Egypt, which meant that the whole world managed to see his film except for his local audience. So we're gonna talk about that. The way I conceive this talk with Tamer is really to talk about the journeys that Tamer made with In the Last Days of the City, which in itself is a journey. It's a journey to the heart of Cairo. It's a journey to the heart of Egypt, but also it's a journey that takes us to Beirut, to Baghdad, so that takes us to the Arab world. Tamer, thank you so much for being with us. It's really a pleasure to kick off these SAFAR talks with you and a talk around your film.
Thank you, Rabia. The pleasure is all mine. I'm so grateful for your invitation, and I'm so happy to be here. And I'm also, like Amani, I'm so grateful for everybody who made it, who left this amazing weather outside to join this conversation. Actually, it's also in Berlin, the weather is amazing. So it's really, it means a lot to me, so thank you.
Tamer, I'm gonna start with this talk discussing journeys with you. I have 3 journey chapters that I would like to discuss with you. First, I would like to start by saying that this film took 10 years of your life to be achieved, which is in itself a very long journey. I want to start from the beginning with you. How did you conceive this film? This film has been shaped by so many events, the events that took place in Egypt. Of course, you changed as an individual as well, but Egypt has changed so much as a country. Can you take us to the beginning of this journey? How did the idea of making this film emerge, and how did you evolve with the project as it became the film that we have seen?
Yeah, I mean, first I would like to say that if I knew that it would take 10 years, maybe I wouldn't start the journey. So you know, it was just like I started, like when I started, I thought I would make a film in a couple of years, and then, but you know, the 2 years brought another year, and another year brought another year, and then it ended up to be a full decade. And in a way, you know, it's as we speak about journeys, of course, like, you know, it's maybe it's the longest journey that I had in my life. It's like I used to say it's 1/4, but now I lie if I say 1/4, because I'm much older now. So it's close to be 1/5 of my life. And yeah, it's a very long journey. It was also very tough. And it felt at some moments that it felt like, you know, it felt like I remember many days that the first thing I think of when I wake up is to quit. And but at the same time, it was a very beautiful journey. It was a very rich. It was very rich. It was very meaningful. I learned a lot. It's a journey that if I had the chance, I would do it again, as it was. So, you know, it's strange how we look at things differently when we look at any journey when we are inside, and then we look back to it in the end, and we see the tough moments of this journey as gifts, as moments of inspiration, as moments of learning. So yeah, it's this perspective is very different.
You were mentioning looking back at the journey. Once you finished the film and the film premiered in Berlin, was it the film that you had in mind 10 years when you started writing it? As you say, it was a very long journey. How much did it look like your initial impression when you started making this film?
Yeah, you know, it's this is a very good question. You know, when the first time I saw the film with people on cinema, and I'm sure you can imagine how this moment was so charged with many emotions, because it was after 10 years of working and and every day I was thinking that I won't be able to make it, and then when it happened, and I watched the film on full screen with people in the cinema. You know, it's a very different film than the film that I started to work on like 10 years before. But also it's the closest film to what I was imagining. You know, it's very different. I feel like it's the film that I wanted to do with the experience of 10 years. Mm-hmm. So it was actually, I would say it was, yeah, there are things that I felt because the thing is, you never, the real film is not the film I make. The real film is the film that you watch, and they are not the same one. The film I make is, big part of it is in my head. And I'm not sure if I put it on screen or not, and no one can tell this. You know, so there are things that are still in my head, and I think I see them on screen because they are in my head. Mm-hmm. That's why I feel like the testimony of the people about the film is more valid and more credible than the filmmaker, because the filmmakers know too much. And so for me, it was, there is always a gap between what you imagine and what you can achieve. And the journey of making a film is a kind of a negotiation with this gap. You always have this gap that gets bigger and bigger every day when you work. And because there is always, like, you know, when your imagination is very free, you can see things, but then when you try to achieve them on the ground, it's very different. And this gap between what you imagine and what you achieve, filmmaking is in this gap, in this negotiation. Mm-hmm. To which extent you compromise, or where do you make the compromise? it's an ongoing negotiation with the reality, with the conditions you're working with the budget, with your team, with your incapacity of achieving what you want, because there is always with your limits. It's a journey to understand your limit and where these limits are and how you embrace them or deal with them or push them, or and you go through all these emotions every day. Because simply when you do any type of art, it's like you are dating the failure version of you. So you go and you realize that you are not as good as you think.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very tough moment, because it's like writing a book or working on a PhD, or there is always, you always feel that there is something that you could make it better. Mm-hmm. And you couldn't. Mm-hmm. Then this question of where and when you stop, and why, and when you get satisfied, and when you find this sanity inside you to accept that this is who you are. Mm-hmm. So from one side it's tough, because you realize that, yes, I'm not as good as I thought. But from the other side, it's also beautiful, because it allows you to understand and to know something about yourself that you didn't know before. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So for me, like, if you want, and since we are talking also about journey, for me, filmmaking is a way of engaging with life. It's a way of living. And it's not a job. It's not, I make films because it allows me to understand the reality around me. It allows me to understand myself. It allows me to see parts of me, or to improve parts of me, or to deal with parts that are hidden, or I need to accept them, or to deal with them on every level, whether it's the level of making the film itself, or the question that the film is asking, or the level of working with other people. All these levels is offering you a chance to go into yourself, because there is always a kind of loneliness. I could say that I was surrounded by the best crew and the best team ever. I consider myself the luckiest filmmaker in the world. I have great people who were so they are very creative, they are so talented, and they believed in the film, and they supported the film for 10 years, for full 10 years.
Yeah, this was actually my second chapter for you, Tamer. You didn't do this journey alone in the end. You were surrounded by a fantastic team, as you said. We had a talk some years ago with your DOP, Bassem Fayyad, who's also in the film as Bassem, and with your sound designer, Victor Brace, and they also mentioned all the challenges of working on such a long process, but they also mentioned that they always felt guided with you, and that it was not just like each was doing his job, but it was more like a collaboration, that you were working together. How was it to work on such a journey with your teammates? Did you know from the very start that you wanted to work, for instance, with Bassem, your DOP, who really managed to produce something incredibly beautiful with the image of the film, shooting Cairo the way he did? How did the collaboration with your team emerge? And was the team ready to, or when did they know that this process would be that long, like a 10-year process in the end?
Yeah, I think no one knew in the beginning. So we were just like, we were dragged for this 10 years. We were just like, it was like a trap. that we were inside and we needed to finish. So anyway, we had to accept it. Also, don't forget that over these 10 years, there was a lot of changes in not only in Egypt, in the whole region, in the whole world. Like we started to work in 2006, and then we went through everything happened from in 2011 on and onwards, and that was like not an easy thing to work within. So I mean, first of all, I think the team, as you said, no one makes a film alone. You need people, and these people are like, you know, they are like this is the most important decision you make. It's like, you know, it's like, you know, you choose a mother for your child. You go to, a film is like bringing a child. So you need to have, you will not like, you need to think of who you want to parent your child with you. And this is how I feel with everyone with the crew. Like Bassem in particular, Bassem was the very first decision I made. Like, you know, I said I want to make this film with Bassem. It was like something, like it was one package. Because there is something in Bassem. I mean, first of all, I feel very lucky to be close to Bassem while he's working. Bassem is very talented. He's very inspiring person to everyone around him, and he is full of talent that comes in every second, and you just need to find the right tone with him, and then everything just like it's like dancing. So I remember that I wanted to work with Bassem since the first time I met him, without even seeing one frame he shot. I felt like a person with this soul must be a great director of photography, a great cinematographer, and he is indeed. I would say not only with Bassem and also with Khaled. Like it was very, Khaled, who's, since we are like in London, Khaled is a Londoner, my lead actor and fellow producer. Khaled is someone that I knew through the film. He wasn't my friend before, but through the process of making the film, we became very close friends. We became like brothers, and the bond between us is, I feel, is unbreakable. I mean, Bassem is using this word, like we as a team looks like people who went to the war together and came back, and they feel like they saved each other's life. So this kind of bond was kind of created between all of us, and I'm so grateful that till today we are like very close. We are updating each other on what we are doing. If I have the chance, I will work with the same people again and again and again and again. For me, I feel like since we were talking also about journey, like the main issue is I knew how I want the film to be, but I didn't know how to make it. And that was the thing. The thing is, I feel since films are a way of engaging with reality, of asking questions about reality, we need to find this very, how can I say, very fine line. And this is what I'm telling to my students when I make a workshop or something. This is what I say. I say, like, making a film is like is an agony. It's like a journey to to the hell. So don't make it unless the agony of not making the film is bigger than the agony of making the film. Otherwise, it doesn't worth it. Like, you know, it's not like, you know, it's just like it's you are full of doubts, full of questions. You wake up every day asking yourself, why do I do this to myself? And there is a very fine line between, like, you produce, you are looking for something that you don't know, or you are reproducing what you already know. And this fine line is very important. It's also about, like, what you do when you do any type of art. You need to feel this, to feel a level of it's like there is something unknown, and through the process of making the film, you get to know it. And this process makes it very fragile, makes you very fragile. So you need to be surrounded by people who accept this fragility and deal with it. And this is what I meant of having amazing people around me, because they were actually, I'm grateful to Bassem and Victor if they said they were guided, because I wasn't guiding them. We were in a conversation, in a dialogue, to discover something together. It's not I have something that I want to impose. You know, I go to the set having questions. I don't have answers. And through the conversation, through the dialogue, we find the answers together. And this is a way of working. It's very different than, like, because for me, I wanted the film to have this mix between toughness and elegancy, if it makes any sense. This roughness and elegancy was like my wish to achieve, and it's a question about the reality. I didn't know how to make this happen. And the only way is to learn how to do it while I'm making the film itself. So that's why having the right people is very important.
And can I ask you about the input of, let's say, you mentioned the DOP, Bassem Fayyad, and the sound designer, Victor Brace, but I also assume that also having an important set designer, because there are so many details that we see inside and outside. How much did you rely on the input of these people? How much these people did give you things that you did not think of? How much room did you give them to do, also to come up with things themselves?
It's very difficult even to me to if I look at the film, it's very difficult to me to say who said what. You know, it was really like a workshop. We had the pleasure to work with the great art director Salah Marai, the late Salah Marai. He was my professor in the Film Institute, and he was the only one who has a great experience in the team. Actually, he was so how can I say? He was so generous, because I contacted him because I wanted him to recommend one of his students to work with me, and then he read the script. That I had the pleasure also to work with Rasha Salki on it. We co-wrote the script together, and then he told me, you know what, I want to make this thing. And my first reaction, I said no. I said, I can't work with you. He said, why? I said, because you are my professor, you are my teacher. I cannot. I won't feel comfortable of, like, criticizing your work or saying no to something that you offered. He's a great and he's a genius art director. He was the director of the the masterpiece of Shadi Abdel Salam, the Mummy. He was the art director of Shadi Abdel Salam. So it's for me, it felt too much to work with him. And then he said to me, but you know, I want to make this film because I also want to learn like all of you. And that was so kind and so modest of him. But actually, like, I feel like when we started to work, he was so into the process of making the film, and he accepted that we are doing the film with a very low budget, without any with maybe 20% of what he used to have as a team, as a human team. We couldn't afford to have like a great a big team for the art direction. It was only him and 2 assistants, and they were doing everything by themselves, which is against everything we do in the commercial industry where he used to work. And he accepted to do these things, and actually he was so happy, and he was like was always like discussing, like, even the look of the film. I remember something that's very, very important, because in the beginning, when we started to shoot the film, I wasn't very happy with the results. So we were going to shoot, and then we go back to look at the rushes, me and Basim and Victor and all the team. And I felt like there is something in the rushes that is not really, that is not inspiring, that has the same kind of very monotonous way of capturing the reality. And for me, the major question is how to capture the soul of Cairo, that is a big city, multi-layered, has so many layers, how to capture it in 2 hours. And to achieve this, I wanted to learn how to film Cairo the way I feel it. And then I was so frustrated, and then we left the office, me, him, and Basim, and we went to like a street cafe, and we were sitting there discussing and talking. And then he said something. He said, you know, if you want to capture Cairo, then you need to surrender to it. You cannot impose the image of Cairo. You need to let the city give you, or gift you something. And that was something that opened something in my head. And since then, I started to rethink of the whole process and change it with Basim, with Khaled. And we managed. I feel like there was moments when, and there are some scenes in the film that I'm sure you can easily see that we don't have the possibility during these scenes to stop, because there are scenes happening inside big events that are happening at the same time. So we cannot stop the events and I talk to the actors, for example, or talk to Basim or say, no, I want this way or that way. So we needed to create this kind of complicity between us to be able to capture something that we all see it the same way. And guess what? When it was working, I didn't need to tell them that we move to the next shot, because we all knew that we have it now. Mm-hmm. And this is on a human level, is the most beautiful thing, is you feel you are part of people who have this level of complicity together.
Tamer, you were mentioning now that the shooting, all of the things sometimes were happening while parallel events were taking place. And this is also my third and last chapter, which I wanted to discuss with you. let's talk about this geographical journey. We go into the heart of Cairo, but we also discover Egypt through your film. We discover facets of Cairo, but also Egypt that we might not have seen before. And through Khaled, we go through, whether his working place or the streets, we go on a physical, geographical journey. But also you take us to other places. You take us to Beirut, you take us to Baghdad, all of these cities that are fading cities. I mean, let's not talk about Beirut. We will have time to talk about that enough tomorrow. But how did you decide to first go into this physical, geographical journey between the place where Khaled works and the outside? There is so much between the inside and the outside, but also involve the Arab world through Beirut and Baghdad to this physical journey?
Yeah. You know, I mean, first of all, sometimes, you know, I feel I don't choose the film. I feel the film is choosing me. It's the other way around. Like, you know, you feel an urgency to discover something, to question something, to express something, and then this is what kind of motivate you. I mean, I know Basim like since so many years. I know also Haider, my Iraqi friend, since so many years, and I always we used to meet in different festivals in different places, and every time we meet, we start to talk about our cities, and I feel this connection between us. I mean, of course, Beirut, Cairo, and Baghdad are very different cities, but also I feel they are more or less the same city. They have the same kind of scars. Even if they look different from outside, they also they have in their soul, they have the same, they suffer the same way. And one of the major issues that through the film I was trying to understand or to question about is, what does it mean? What does it mean if you come from this part of the world? What kind of price you pay? What do you get? How do you feel, or what do you do? What's your responsibility when you feel the world is collapsing around you and you only have a camera? What do you do with this camera? And this is, I would say, like a common feeling in the whole region, from Morocco till Baghdad. We grow up in a region that is like taming our life. Our relation to death, to war, is very different than any other part of the world. And also, we for so many years, we were not able to tell our story on screen. People were telling the story in our name. So I wanted the film to start with a very simple story of a man trying to find a flat, to try to find a home, and then it gets bigger and bigger to be a story of a generation from this region. When I'm saying generation, I don't mean an age generation, like not people from the same age. I mean like people from the same background or whatever. So for me, it was, that was why I wanted the film is, yes, the film is about Cairo, but it's also about the idea of living in a city in this region. And Beirut is a place that has a very special place in my heart. I spend, I can't even count the times I went to Beirut in my life. There were years when I was like spending in Beirut more than what I spent in Cairo. And Baghdad is, you know, like Baghdad is a scar for all of us. It's something that kind of shaped how we grow up. You know, I belong to a generation, we saw this moment in 2003 and the years after. And that was something that kept this scar inside us. And I would say, you know, it was my first time to go to Baghdad when I shot the film. And it's till today, it's still, for me, it was the most, it's the place where I've never felt this calmness and comfort in my life as much as I felt it in Baghdad, against everything you imagine. Because the will of the will of people to live and the desire to life is bigger than anything. So it's not really, it's not like what we see it in the media. And that was one of my main challenges, that the media is briefing the reality. It's, how can I say, it turns people into numbers. You know, 60 people dead. These 60 people are 60 different souls, and each one has a story and has a journey and has a path in life. And when you just brief him as one among the 60 people dead, it's not, you know. And yeah, so of course the physical journey in terms of the cities is something very important to me. In terms of Cairo, I have to say, you know, I'm not, it's not about the identity. And to be honest, I'm not a big fan of the word identity. I don't have this issue in my head. I feel like identity is what we choose. And there are places in Egypt that I don't know, that I really don't know. My relation to some parts in Egypt is very similar to the relation of any tourist, because I've never visited, and Egypt is much bigger than Cairo. I can't claim that I know Cairo enough. The film was my questions about the city where I live. Khaled is living, like Khaled's flat in the film is my flat. And the streets where he goes, where he walks, are the streets of my neighborhood. And this is where I walk every day. So, of course, it was like this physical journey of Khaled walking down these streets is also my physical journey of everyday living while making the film. So I can tell you, like, I finished shooting in 2009. In 2010. And in the following years, I was like locked in the editing room trying to make the film out of all the material that I have. And in so many occasions, I was editing the whole day, one scene, and then I leave the editing room to walk down the street of the scene I was editing. And sometimes I was meeting the same people who were in the scene I was editing. And sometimes they were wearing the same clothes. So it felt like I leave the editing of the film to go into a journey inside the film itself. And then the next day I leave the film, to go back to edit the film that I live inside. So it was like a kind of mentally, I was literally losing my mind. So, and of course, this at one moment was very painful, but also it made me understand something about myself, and that's why I'm so grateful to this journey.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I answered your question. Sometimes, you know, I just go and tell
No,
other
but I will link this question, what you were saying, because we have limited time left. So I wanted also to take a bit of the questions that we are receiving. And there is one person, Ramzi, who's actually talking a bit about that. And he's asking if you felt like there was, like you were attempting to salvage parts of the city that are disappearing. Did you feel like you have responsibility to preserve some parts of the city that are disappearing, or part of everyday life, and put them in this kind of a memory box? And how did you deal with this? How did you deal with the fading parts of the city, were there physical or emotional, that are disappearing?
Yeah, and how did you avoid cliché? It's a very good question. Thank you, Ramzi. I mean, I don't know if you are here or you left, but thank you, Ramzi. It's a very good question. Basically, yes, I feel this is something I share with Khaled. The film was made in this moment of like the big inspiration of the film. The film came from trying to capture this feeling that we had through the years starting from 2006 and on. So we felt that something big is coming. I didn't know what is it. I didn't know, but it was clear that we cannot continue this way. And in a way, you have this very mixed feeling towards what's coming on. From one side, you want it to come because it might bring a new beginning. And from the other side, it scares you because it might take with it everything you love. And this mixed feelings towards what's coming, I wanted to make a film about this. So actually, for me, the film is about this moment before everything started. It's what do you feel in this moment before things change, before the change. And of course, one thing I was asking myself, it's like, you know, I grew up, I lost my sister when she was, like, the story of the sister in the film is the story of my sister. And the mother in the film is my mother. So in a way, there was this feeling that I grew up with, that I feel I became a filmmaker because when I lost, like when I understand loss in a very early age, and then I realized that through cinema, you can keep things around you. So one of the things that inspired me to become a filmmaker, that I wanted to keep the things I love, so I want to film them. It's very simple. So in a way, I feel this thing with, I share this with Khaled, the character in the film. I share this feeling, this urge to film something because you want to give it a new life. You want to keep it. You want to keep it in the memory. And in a way, you want to keep. I see the whole film as something about this moment that I wanted also to keep it. I wanted to be seen, or that we are able to look at it in 10 years or in 20 years or in 30 years and understand from where we are coming. And of course, like, this is, you know, I feel it's like Khaled is trying to capture something in his hands, and it's like he's trying to hold some sands, and the sands are going between his fingers. And this is the same feeling I have towards the city. So, and that's why also sometimes you feel like the film was kind of, the whole film was trying to make the frame sharp, like, you know, he loses the focus because the focus is kind of running off between his fingers. This is how I was feeling of it. And just like about the cliche, it's a very good question, because I'm happy because, you know, the film looks like it has all the cliches in the world of a first film. It's a first film about a filmmaker living in a city full of people who are walking around doing nothing. So it's exactly like the, but you know, it doesn't scare me. I feel like the cliche is something that is challenging. It's not, I have no problem of dealing with it. It's how you tackle them. There is nothing wrong about these themes. They are themes because they were treated in a very cliche way. But also, if you find something that moves you, and that and it's very important that this is connected to a film language that you feel is expressing yourself. This is what I wanted. I wanted to play with this gray area between reality and fiction. And that was like the main challenge that I have. That and also it makes it more difficult because, you know, if there are many things that are real around us in the film, when you look at the film, there are many things that are happening, like real events are happening. So anything that looks artificial will pop up. And that was very difficult to, you know, we have to capture something that looks as real as the reality. Yeah, did I answer you?
And I also, Tamer, to bounce on another question that is also addressing what you're just saying. Claire is asking about the documentary realism aspect. How did you conceive this approach? Did it come from the beginning? Can you elaborate a bit more on this documentary approach or that documentary aspect that is seen throughout the film?
Sorry? It was
Claire is asking if you can speak a bit about the documentary realism aspect and how you conceived it as an approach in the film, if you can.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, it was, I don't have this borders in my head between fiction and documentary. And actually, I hate borders. I'm not, you know, I have an Arab passport. I'm stopped in every border in Europe. I'm always like a target of random checks, so random security checks. And by the way, the world is not, the situation is not better when it comes to using my passport in Arab countries. So I used to hate borders, and I like to see my work as a way of removing these borders between the cities and between the genre and between every. But it was also something about, like, if I want to capture the image of the Cairo, the soul of Cairo, then I shouldn't impose the image on Cairo. It's the other way around. I should allow people to, I should allow Cairo to give its image. So it was a way of surrendering. For me, I wasn't like really trying to, I don't go to the set with a certain image that I want to achieve. On the contrary, I went to the set, I always go to the set trying to see what Cairo wants to give me and then build on it. It's a very different approach. And of course, it's very tough to everyone who is working with me on the team, because you know, in cinema you need to be very precise and you need to be very prepared. But when you don't know what's going to happen, then it's very difficult. And this is the thing that these people, that's why I'm saying I was carried by these people. They were so daring, they were so bold, and they were so generous, and they were so courageous to take this responsibility of being ready to film something that looks like so real, but big part of it is also fictionalized. So mixing these two things was the only way to capture Cairo as a city inside the film.
Mm-hmm. I think we have time for one last question, because the Arab British Center is very strict with me. But there is a question coming from Dina Reza, who's researching social trauma and the 2011 revolution. And while she was watching your film, she said that she had the impression that the film was an expression of some sort of collective or social trauma. Can you discuss a bit the relationship between film and social trauma? Did you see it this way?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like, yes, of course, but, I feel like a bit, I can't say that social trauma was part of the questions that I was directly dealing with, but of course, the film, in a way, speaking about these years, there was this kind of binary system in the society between like dictatorship and extremism. And it feels like we have to pay the price of being in the middle all the time. And this creates, of course, a level of social trauma that is so deep, and it's not, but also so subtle. So you don't see it on the surface, but you can feel it in every breath of air around you. And this is what the film was trying to capture, is these things that are so hidden. And because it's like, when someone was asking me, what do you want exactly to feel, to film? I was saying, I want to film this air that is making us feel like it's suffocating. And it's something that is not tangible, and you cannot really put it, and like, if you are doing a research on this, then I don't envy you. It's a huge thing. It's something that is so deep and hidden and rooted inside the society in a way. Then you need to find your way to get it. And that was also the same challenge that I had. And yeah, thank you, Dina. It's a very good question. Thank you so much.
Tamer, before we finish this talk, because also I'm very interested in this, let's talk a bit about your companions in Cimatech. Reem is asking, how is Cimatech doing the project that you initiated in Cairo? How is the situation in Cimatech at the moment?
We are going through a good moment now. We are really building we are kind of trying to find, how can I say, we are building a new team, and we are preparing a new program. Of course, after the Corona was like a very tough time for any place that is doing public events. And now we are just like out of this, and we are trying to have a new start with a new team, and we are preparing many events online and on-site. And also a big part of CIMATech will go more towards like organizing educational program and workshops. Plus all the service we have, we have an archive. We are doing, we scan Super 8 and 16 and 35 millimeter films. We have a screening room, and we hopefully this will continue soon.
Tamer, thank you so much. I think we were really privileged to have this very moving talk, I have to say. At least I felt it. It was very moving. Also, we're very sorry we cannot take all the questions, but it's great that people really interacted with us and that there is such a nice vibe still around your film after these years. Your film is always kind of an event in itself. So thank you so much, Tamer, for being with us.